Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parco, your host of Helping the Brave, and let's bring in our guest today, Faust Ruggiero. Did I get close at all?
You got it.
All right, perfect. So this is unusual. Normally, we veterans, somebody's been in the military, but you've been helping veterans for a very long time. I think you said like 40 years,
Mhm.
something like that before we got started. And somebody sent me that your book was coming about PTSD. It took me, oh, how old am I now? 50. Many years to deal with my PTSD. I never thought I had any. I just thought I had really good memory. But I do have a stoic face, which my wife said, this is Ed happy, this is Ed sad. And I didn't put it all together what my issues were. I mean, my kids thought I was crazy, but that's beside the point. So,
And I had it's 40 years counting veterans, and I wanted to do a book that was going to be there for veterans. In fact, we dedicated the book to the veterans. Everybody gets traumatized. Some people, it develops into PTSD. When it does, it doesn't let go. It can change a life and a family forever. So we wanted to put something together that was going to say, okay, fine, here, let's talk about trauma. Let's see how it develops into PTSD. Let's see what you can do about it. And I've been treating PTSD in veterans for, like I say, it's 4 decades, and my people make it. But and then it's a program you got to commit to. It's not one of those quick, hey, I'll fix you in 30 day kind of things.
well, what I've known now in the last 2 years of my journey is, for most people I talk to, that you PTSD doesn't go away. You just learn how to deal with it. Or is that correct? Or have you been able to get rid of it?
You don't get rid of it, but it's beyond. I wanted to bring it beyond just know how to deal with it. I want to get it to the point that the symptoms are minimized, that people can face it and not deal with all the skills they try to develop in order to do that. Don't talk about it. Let's avoid anything that might remind me of that. I want to help them get rid of the flashbacks and the nightmares and all those kinds of things. And we're able to do that. And then we're creating a new lifestyle is what we're doing. We're creating a world where they can, people can say, hey, I can get up. I feel good about what I'm doing here. That's not haunting me anymore. That's the key.
Okay. So you're saying there's ways to get through that on the other side, because one of the biggest with the Veterans Administration, if you have medical, they're pretty good on it. But if you have a mental issue, they're really horrible about it.
You're right. And
It takes forever for you to be seen and everything else. And they have these gatekeepers that keep you from being seen by the psychiatrist or whoever you need to be seen by. And I think that's the biggest problem, is that part of it. I think that as soon as someone goes in there, they should see a psychiatrist. I don't care if it's a waste of his time or not, but the ones it's going to save is huge.
And you're right. And it's actually how I got into this, where a veteran came to me 40 years ago, and it was a veteran of the Vietnam War, a POW, and said, can you help me out? Somebody's got to help me here. I've been waiting. I waited 4 months to get into the VA. When I got there, they rushed me in and out, and they really didn't help me with anything. So you're right about that. And I never criticized the VA, but, they can do a whole lot better on this part of it. And, what we do, we start with an educational thing. People get PTSD. They don't understand why the trauma developed into PTSD. Why can't I just let go of this thing? We're going to educate people on this. That's what I do with my people. We go back over and I don't get them in there and say, let's go over your story, because that's too hard to go through. We're going to we start easy. We build our rapport. I get them to the point where they enjoy talking to me. And then I start educating. This is what trauma is all about. This is how it develops into PTSD, right? And normally. And then they start saying, yeah, that's what happened to me. And nobody ever even explained that to me.
All right, so let's stop right there. How does PTSD, let's talk about what you just said. How does PTSD, what you just said, like, explain that part.
You start with the trauma, and, could be anything, something that happened when you're in the service. An IED goes off and you lose part of your battalion, you lose maybe a limb or something. Okay, you've got trauma. You come back. And some people, they seem to be able to process that and move on. They reset, is what we say. Other people cannot. The body and the mind are not going to reset. And the reason for that is it's not just in your head. And that's a fallacy I want to get out about PTSD. It is not a mental health condition. I wish people would stop selling veterans on that. It's a physical, emotional, intellectual situation. The body holds on to the stress. The emotions have a difficult time facing it, and clarity of thought just disappears. Those three things together are what create PTSD. And when a person is in the throes of that, it's not going to happen. You're not going to talk your way through it. That's another thing. I've been telling the Veterans Administration that for years. They say, well, here, antidepressant here, talk about it, and we're good. And I know it's not, because the body's not going to let go, and the emotions are going to wrap themselves around it, and it's going to continue to replay. And that's the other thing. You know how it goes. There's the nightmares, and there's the flashbacks, and there's the triggers, and and we want to educate people. This is how it gets to that point. Then it's an individual thing. Now I get to your story, because that's the other thing the VA and everybody else does. They treat this in a canned kind of way. It's the same for everybody, and it's not. It never was. Everybody's story is different. Everybody's trauma is different. The development of the PTSD is different, and how we're going to treat that has to be different too.
I think they treat it all the same, because that's how it all gets put on your benefits. When you have PTSD and you get paid for having PTSD, and those different percentages, they have everything built into those percentages. And if you hit this, you're at this level, and you hit this, you're at this level. I think they do that for standardized, but that's the biggest thing. Talk therapy doesn't work. It's helped me the most is my podcast, even though I talk, but I get to talk to people, and I get to hear things differently and talk about things differently. And that's what's helped me out the most for what I do. One of the biggest problems I was not a combat vet, so I didn't think I had any right to talk about PTSD. And that's one of the other issues that we run into. And so many veterans, especially, that were in during that period of time that there was no war, things has happened. I was a corpsman. I worked in, I dealt with burn patients and a bunch of other stuff, and I dealt with I'm not going to get into my whole story, but I also pulled duty as EMT, which wasn't just EMT. We were paramedics. We get pulled out to I-5 in Southern California. We saw a lot of stuff that not normally you would see. And I didn't understand. I ran away from the medical field, got in a totally different field, and didn't understand why. And then it finally hit me later when a ranger was like, dude, you got PTSD? I go, no, I don't. I just have a good memory. And it's like... And you know what I mean? He's like, no, you don't understand. And they don't explain any of that to you. When I got out, PTSD was a scarlet letter. You did not talk about it. You did not say you had it. If you did, you were not getting jobs. You were not getting anything.
And it's not that much different today. It's better, but it's still not. It's the old story. Why do veterans talk to veterans, only veterans? Because, okay, we understand each other. Well, that alone should tell people we're missing something. So, when I started doing this, I said, all right, just tell me the story. Well, you're not going to believe it. I said, yes, I am. If you experience this, it's not my job to judge it. It's my job to help you through it. And I've had great success with veterans over the years, because I educate them. I give them the answers. Oh, that's why this happened. That's why I can't let this go. That's why I'm doing these things. The other thing it was very important to get people veterans past is just what you said, that scarlet letter. I can't talk about this. If I talk about this, I'm either crazy, or I'm weak, or I got a mental health disorder, and no one's going to fix it. And that's the other part. As far as they were concerned, no one was ever going to deal with it. So why should I tell my story? And we have to get past all that. And that's part of what the book is all about, because I also want the legislature to get into this finally and say, hey, we got to start allocating some funds here. We have to, for education and then for treatment. And if we don't go full blown with this, and we don't all get together and work together, this isn't going to happen.
All right. So so you have your book. What's the name of your book?
The Fix Your PTSD Handbook.
Okay. And that's out now everywhere, Amazon, everywhere you find your books at.
Yep.
Okay. And so what will it help me do? Because you talked about how you have to find out certain things and you can't talk it out. There's from what you just said, and I agree to a certain point. There are some things you need to talk about and understand what you are. But I understand what you're talking about. The VA is like, here's your pills. Now you have PTSD. Here's a you're going to talk to a psychiatrist. You got 6, and if you're not better in 6 months, we don't know what to do with you.
Yeah, and I've had people, vets and first responders, it's just people have been abused all their lives. And sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes 3 years, but you know what? They keep on coming back. That's the key. You create that safe space. So what does the book do? It's the written version of what I do in counseling. It talks about trauma and what trauma does to a person, the internal implosion, if you will, that happens when trauma hits. Then it teaches people how it develops into PTSD. Okay, now I understand I had trauma. I've got PTSD. I see how it developed. Now I want people to understand how PTSD works in the body. There's 6 or 7 stages you actually go through of this. And then I want people to understand how to get into treatment and what to do there, so that when they go in, they know how to pick a person that's going to help them and what's going to happen in therapy. And I give them a roadmap. This is what you're going to learn in therapy. This is how you're going to do it. So that's what I don't want people out there saying, okay, I got to get help and I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'll try that guy or that girl over there. It's not going to work. I give them every piece of information, action steps to do this. I want them to be educated so they can advocate for themselves, but then with the aid of people like myself.
Gotcha. All right. So here's the problem with most vets. We go through the VA. The VA doesn't allow us to pick our people.
If you want the VA benefits.
No, I'm just talking in general. You're right. If you're going through, and because for most of us who are at least 10% disabled, we're covered under the VA to get our treatment. What I'm getting at is they want to put you through to their own psychiatrist, psychologist kind of thing. And if they're booked, then they put you out to community care. In the past, you had 6 months. Well, if they wanted to extend it, it was the act of God. And then the VA secretary came out and said, you know what, you're going to get 1 year. But everybody who was done weeks prior to that, you still have to go through the old way. And that I fell into that. And so when they were putting back in to get my extension, they needed this from my psychiatrist, and they would send it multiple times. They said they would never get it, and finally they just denied it.
And that's what we fought when I started doing this. That very thing, people would come in and I said, well, you've got benefits. Yeah, but they're not going to pay for you. I said, well, let's start doing some things. And I was fortunate that I had treated a veteran years ago, not on PTSD, but some other things. And we formed a very good bond. We'd put together some support groups. And he said, let me see what I can do. And the VA was willing in my area to pay for extended visits with me. They brought it, I think it was about 1.5 years they would give the veterans, but they wouldn't give the full amount. And they said, would I take less? And I did. So, I wasn't concerned about that. So we were able to do that. And again, that's another thing we have to be able to do is, okay, VA, you can't do this. You're not equipped. You don't have the manpower. You don't have what you need in order to treat these people. Then we need to make sure that we have psychologists and psychiatrists who are becoming skilled in PTSD, and you need to fund those people. You need to move it outside of the VA a little bit. Again, something that we're trying to do.
Right. But it's for most of us, we feel that, and you say you don't pick on the VA. I do, because I deal with it on a regular basis. And I just feel that they just, to a certain point, there's just so many of us, they just don't care because they got so many of us. They just trying to, there's not enough people to handle these things. Medical there is, but for the psychiatrist part of it, there just isn't. And unless you check certain boxes, you're not going to the next level and the next level. And that sad thing when people veterans ourselves, we have a different level of pain, meaning that we have a new baseline at the older we've gotten and what we've done compared to regular people. So when someone asks us, what's your pain? And we say it's a 5, that could be a 10 for somebody else who's never been through what we've been through. And I try to explain to veterans, when you go into the VA, make sure you understand what you're telling them. When you go back to your old level of pain, whatever that number is, which is hard for us to do and tell them because, we're supposed to be able to handle things and just deal with it and move on.
It's interesting. I've told them the same thing. It's easy. Any of us who are subjected to trauma and we don't get help and we learn how to cope with it and deal with it, and PTSD and physical pain, the tolerance goes way up. And then you go represent yourself to someone, and these people that you're talking to are not people who understand that. So they say, well, you don't seem to be showing a whole lot of symptoms of someone who is in pain, and you don't come to the front of the line. And I've always kind of said, look, you do me a favor, cry when you go there. I can't handle this anymore. I'm going to die. Well, that's not me. I said, well, you know what? It's going to have to be for about an hour.
Yeah. I tell people when they go through all these things, it's a game. You have to play the game because of the way they set it up, and you have to play that game the way they've set it up. And I'm not saying lie. I'm just saying you have to play the game that they've created for you.
And you do. And again, veterans have to be willing to go outside of the VA. You're not going to get the help. I'm going back to when I started this, counseling Vietnam veterans. They weren't helping them. And I haven't seen it in terms of the mental health part of it. I haven't seen it change dramatically in the last 4 decades. So if anything, when I talk to my veterans, I always say, hey, you're beating your head against the wall. If you want to keep on doing that, you're going to have to take it outside. And there are some of us out here who have been doing this for a while, and we do know what to do, but if you keep going back to the VA, it's a broken record, and it's just going to keep on playing.
Right. Now, this is a totally different thing. Do you do Nexus letters and all those things for your clients when they go to the VA?
Yeah, I do whatever I have to do.
You know what I mean? But because the Nexus letter is to show that we have the PTSD and certain things that they have. So when we go through our process, we can get our pay for it so that we can keep going. A lot of the ones with the VA, and this is what my issue has been. If you work for the VA, you say you can do it, but you're discouraged to do it. And so it's so much better to go through community care because they'll do it. But the problem with a lot of those people, they're very expensive, these letters, and to get you what you need. And I try to explain to people, you're going to get a big check your first time. You're better off getting these Lexus letters just to make sure that it's put through right the first time so you get your benefits right away.
Yeah, and again, I'll call the VA if I got so-and-so here. I need to know what you need from me. I need to know exactly what it is, and I'll let you know whether I can do it. I can always do it, but I don't let them know that. And I'll just say this, you want letters, you want evaluations, you want testing. What do you want? You tell me what you want so that this person is going to be able to access benefits, and I'll do that. And I ask them to send that to me in an email or something like that, so I have it written, and then I work off of that. So again, I'm back to case by case. It's John comes in, Joe comes in. They're 2 different people. I need to know what it is you want from me so I can help these people.
All right. So back to your book. You the one of the things you tell people who to look for when they look for. And so how do you do that? What do people look for?
You can do that. You can go online, for example. A site like Psychology Today has all the psychologists and psychiatrists on there, and they tell you what their specialties are. They tell you what area they're in. So you can say, type in, I live in California, in Los Angeles, and I need to know what psychologists are in that area that treat PTSD. They give you a list. And now you can at least break it down from there. You can start with that. Then you can advocate for yourself. You're going to call them and say, this is what I'm dealing with. I need to know that you know about PTSD. I need to know that you know what today's treatments are all about, because some of them are good.
Yeah. So the VA first sent me to community care to a place called Mending Feelings.
That's terrible.
And I was like, looked at their website and it was a little too much. We'll just leave it alone. And I said that I am not going to be a good fit for these people. Please get me connected to someone. But the fact that they thought a veteran of PTSD needed to go to a company that's called Mending Feelings is a problem.
Yeah, it is. And how they pick that, I don't know. Those of us that work well with veterans, and I think what we do is we're practical, we're pragmatic people. We're dynamic, we're straightforward. We don't mince words. This is the way it is. I need to hear that from you, and that's what I'm going to give back to you. And I know what I'm talking about when I do that. That's what a veteran's looking for, and that's what we need to provide.
Right. And most veterans want to deal with a veteran who's been through it or has been somewhere, that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not saying everybody, but like for myself, I deal more as a first responder from what I did in the military than I do as a combat veteran because I wasn't in combat, but the things I saw. So when I did my first fire walk for veterans, which was a walk across coals like a Tony Robbins event, and when the guys that helped me put it on work for Tony Robbins for 20 years as his fire captain, it was all veterans only. By the second year, I was about all first responders and veterans because I realized going through this stuff, I relate more to a first responder dealing with the stuff that I deal with.
And that's fair. I mean, I probably started doing it the same way. I was doing these kind of programs for police and first responders and a lot of the people on the ambulance. So I was geared that way, but I'm not sure what happened when that first veteran came in, but all of a sudden everything clicked and everything changed. And when his story went so well that now he went back and said, "Well, hey, this guy helped me," and the second guy that came in said, "I can't go to him. He doesn't have a military background. He's not going to know what I'm talking about." He said, "Try him, you will." So it's been 40 years of doing that. It's the old question, like an alcoholic. Do you have to go to alcoholics to be able to get sober? It helps, and it may be the primary thing you do. Is it the only thing? No, it's the same thing with veteran. One said to me, sometimes we have to step out of the box because we like to go just to veterans because that's safe for us. They understand it. Is it the only place that's safe? That's a decision anyone has to make on their own.
Yeah, it seemed like when I was going through my last one with the community care, and she was a Air Force person who was a psychiatrist, and that's where she was in. And it seemed like she talked more about herself than what she talked about me. You know what I mean? Or asking me. And so it seemed like I was like, okay, is this whole thing for me or is this whole thing for you? I mean, we go through our 30-minute conversation and I might have said a few words and that was about it. She wasn't asking me things, and it was just a little different how she did it. So I think I don't think it really has to be somebody who was in the military. It just needs somebody who can be able to help you and be an understanding that if you tried other things and it's not helping, there are some other stuff. What do you think about all the different types of medicines that they're using now to treat it? And I mean, outside of normal medicine also.
Well, every medicine has its side effects. And, you might get through the initial difficulty. It might work with some of the symptoms and might create the other more symptoms. My feeling about the pharmaceutical end of it is if you're going to do it in conjunction with a counseling program. In and of itself, it's going to treat some things, but you're still it's not going to take away the trauma. It's not going to take away the PTSD. It's going to dull it down is all it's going to do. And if that's what you're looking for, that's great. If you're talking about dulling it down while you're working through something else with the goal of getting off it at the end, that's, I think, the more appropriate way to work with it.
You said that working through your trauma. How do you deal with PTSD and get rid of your trauma?
Well, it's a process. What happens is when people aren't skilled at working with PTSD, they go too fast and they try to get the person to tell their story. Now, you've been around veterans a good portion of your life. How many of them want to walk right into their story with someone they just meet? It's not going to happen. What I do is I want to create that bond. I want to create that trusting atmosphere where they can say, yeah, you're a guy that and we go through, I can start unloading this and unpacking it little by little. I'm not going there right away, and I don't want them to. It's too fast. We might create too much. We might recreate the trauma. So we're going to go slow. We're going to get that. We're going to get that feeling that you can trust me. Then it's unpacking the story is a lot easier for them. For me, I'm going to go with you I'm going with the flow with you. If it's hard, we're gonna go hard. We're going to take our time. We're going to work with it. If you can get it out a little easier, great. But you got to trust me. That's first. I don't care how you work with it, what you're working with a veteran. You've got to get the trust first.
Right.
It's like one veteran told me, he said he was in service and was traumatized for 3 years in the service. He was out 30 years and he felt he was traumatized more in the 30 years than in 3 years where all the insane things happened. So I don't want them to see me as one more part of that picture where, they can't talk to somebody or somebody's going to try to tell them what to do and it's not appropriate. It's not right.
What should I have asked you today that I haven't asked you?
I think the most important thing is, how does someone get started? Let's say, here, I mean, anyone listening is saying, okay, great. I think he's saying some good things here, but if I'm going to do this, how do I get started in the process? And how you get started, first of all, make a decision. You're not going to do this on your own. It's too big. Okay. If you have a support group or support people in your life, that helps. Then you're going to identify someone who has an expertise in PTSD and make an appointment for one session. I'm not making this appointment to get into counseling with you. Sell me when that's the bottom line. I want to come in there and I want you to tell me and let me know that you know what you're talking about. And I'm going to feel good about talking with you. If you can't get that in the first session, you probably want to get out of there. Because I know with me, that's going to happen. You're going to understand quickly that I'll know what I'm talking about, and that we're going to be able to do some things. That's all. That's the only thing you want to do is make the appointment, but you got to get to a qualified person.
So I thought you could say, order my book first. Well, I mean, there's so many books out there. I think one of the ones I had was the PTSD workbook or something like that. That was my last person told me to order, and we went through that. And I think you just need to get started with something and get and don't rely only on the VA because they're not there to help you. They're here, and I find that a lot of times, and this is just my own personal opinion, I don't need any to be sued by anybody, that the VA people try to find ways not to relate it back to your service.
It's like a big insurance company. We're here for you until you come for what you need. Right. And then we're going to tell you how you don't need it or we can't do that. Didn't you read the disclaimer? I got you on that. Again, all I wanted to do was provide the information and get people to understand that you want to make that first choice where you're going to get help. And I show them not only how to do it, but when you're in that counseling session, I've got about 6-7 chapters that say this is what you're going to do in those sessions. So I don't want to send people in blind. That's what I wanted to do with this book. And again, I'm very practical in the way I do things. There's no fluff. I have a hard time with self-help books because 90% of it's fluff. And they give you lots of information and nothing to do with it. And I'm not built that way. So there's a bunch of information in there, but there is a whole lot of do this, try this. So
That sounds like my financial freedom building personal wealth or home ownership when I was talking about, because I do more mortgages and I do them differently than anybody else, and how I do it. It's all about speed and quality and everything else. And my book was the same way. It was exactly the way I did it. And people were a friend of mine's dad was like, "This is the first real estate book. The first chapter is about credit." Well, because of what I do, if you don't have credit, there's nothing I can help you with.
Exactly.
So, all right. Anything else before we go?
No, they can find, I have a website. It is my name. If people want to check it out, the excerpts from the books are there. There's a contact link if people have questions.
So it's your full name, FaustRuggiero.com. Okay. Because not everybody's going to be watching this. So I want to
Yeah.
make sure they heard that. And it'll be in the show notes also.
Yeah. And it's there. And if I have questions, hey, I think I need help, but I don't know what to do. Let me know.
All right. So this is the Fix Your PTSD Handbook. And what's the Fix Your Self-Empowerment series? What else do you work on?
I have 7 books. I started with a Fix Yourself Handbook, but then I went into anxiety, depression, prediction, internal language was the last one. So they're all different things that people are going through. And what I'm finding is that people they'll read this book and then they'll go back and say, "Oh, he's got one on depression. I got that." So it's all. I build my chapters really for people that are no nonsense about things. They're not these 40-page chapters where you got to labor through it. There's 6 or 7-page chapters. At the end of it, there are 6 or 7 action steps. Okay, here's all the information you just read. Do this with it. That's the way I think things happen. That's the way I counsel. I don't sit back and say, "How was your week?" and we'll talk about fluff, and then you leave. We get down to business, and when you leave the session, I say, "You need to do these things for next week, and let's see how you did with them, and we'll tweak them if we need to."
Gotcha. Now, so if someone says they have PTSD, they could have depression and anxiety part of that, or they could have depression and anxiety totally separate from that.
Correct.
And I don't think people understand that, because some people have had their benefits under depression, but now we're going back for PTSD. Well, all that gets put into mental health, period, into one category for us. And you're saying PTSD should not be in that category.
No way. No, it shows itself like that. Oh yeah, I'm isolating, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm acting out. There's all, because what you have PTSD. One of the symptoms is that hyperactive kind of thing where you're the loud noise and you're so it presents like that. But the body's involved, the emotions, the intellect, everything's involved. Sometimes PTSD isn't registering as much in the head as it is in the body. So again, every case is different, and we've got to tear it apart and see where we have to give the primary focus.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Go check out his stuff. Go to Amazon, get his book, and go find his website. That is his first and last name, FaustRuggiero .com. And again, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking.
My pleasure.